Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. Near the river in the beautiful cow town of Yeoju, South Korea, we are witnessing, I think, the only big eclipse that we get to see this year. We're 5 minutes away from total coverage of the moon by the Earth's shadow. What do you think of that, Shamar?
Oh, it looks so beautiful. We're lying in this park down by the river, and there's nobody around. And we have on our big coats, and they're like blankets, and we're just lying down on the ground. And Keith just opened. What was that? Opened something, a splash in my face. Anyways, yeah, frosty. We're lying here in our big jackets that are like big blankets, and we're just looking at the moon up above, and it is beautiful.
We rushed to get here through various rice paddies. We stopped by the convenience store for a few refreshments immediately after work. And when we wake up in the morning, we get to watch election results for the midterms of American elections. And
so the elections are on the eclipse day in America?
Yeah, right now it's like 2 in the morning or so. When is it? Like 2 or 3 in the morning in America. And
here it's what time?
Here it's 5:57. The eclipse is supposed to happen fully at 7:59.
That's 7:57. Yeah.
What did I say?
5:57.
Oops. Yeah, it's 7:58 now, which gives us 1 minute for the full eclipse of the moon. And it's early pre-dawn hours in America, the day of the big midterm elections. So it feels kind of like we're going through a portal, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Definitely so.
A lot of anxiety floating around out there.
Yeah, true.
Do you feel anxious?
I don't feel so anxious. I mean, I'm curious to know what's going to happen with the elections, but I've definitely felt tired. Do eclipses do anything like with gravity and stuff? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I felt tired.
I just know that people have been burning a lot of trash. They use plastic liners that they lay down with machines. Ooh, it's 7:59. So that's, I guess, as full as it's going to get.
Okay, so it's not a full eclipse. It's not like
totally black. Whoa, shooting star right then.
Wow.
Well, right
on the minute.
Right on the minute between the eclipse moon and Jupiter, the brightest thing in the sky. Jupiter, as you know, is like the Santa Claus of the planets, and it signifies joy and abundance and prosperity.
Yeah.
Good times, man. Good times.
And the shooting star was like closer to that.
Yeah, it was closer to Jupiter than the. Maybe it's a metaphor for our exit from Korea towards the glorious
good times.
Golden good times of Bali and the Southwest Pacific tropical beaches and the big money. Yeah, who knows where that'll come from. Selling art. Maybe we'll find a box of treasure on the beach.
Yeah.
And the authorities will just let us have it because they like us so much.
A big golden necklace.
Yeah, they'll be like, oh, you found the lost necklace of Bali. If you put it in our museum, we'll give you $100 million finder's fee, as was previously, advertised on the Bali official website.
Wow, so the eclipse.
So we got a little magic. We got a little eclipse magic.
Okay,
Hell yeah.
It's really dark. It's more of like a glowing red-orange.
Yeah, that's
really beautiful.
how eclipses tend to go.
Yeah.
Cool, man. So there's like this foggy, dark. The foggy mist is kind of. It's not totally impenetrable or anything. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to see the moon or Jupiter or that shooting star. But the treetops to our left are shrouded in this kind of foggy mist.
Yeah.
And further down the park, there's these big lights for the tennis courts but they're covered up by trees, which are between us and the tennis court. And that kind of lights up some of the mist. So there's this misty look, and I wonder how much of it is water, and how much of it is burnt trash.
I know.
Like I was saying, they use plastic liners in their gardens. They have like a machine, I think, that they crank out. They wheel this thing out, and it lays down this tight little strip of plastic, and there's holes in it where they mechanically implant their saplings or their sprouts that of various vegetables that they buy from greenhouses. So they don't plant the seed, they plant the sprout. And then when the plastic is done, I don't know if they're required to recycle it, but the first year we came in, at the edge of every rice paddy, you'd see a smoldering pile of these burning plastic strips. And some of the fire, or some of the smoke smells a little bit like wood. But
I don't mind that smell.
I don't mind that.
That's
I think that's just from that one house that we walk by on our way to work that has like a steel chimney.
Yeah.
And, or I don't know if it's steel, it's probably like aluminum or something. Anyway, yeah, we've been feeling a little weird and tired lately. It might be from cosmic influences, or it might just be that we're breathing particulate matter and burnt plastic for the past few days, as it's past harvest time, and they've finally harvested the last of the rice in the rice paddies. So they're now like a kind of brown exposed dirt and yellowy stalks that are left over. And all the gardens have been harvested except for some Chinese cabbage and I think daikon radishes.
Yeah, and on the way to work every day, I'm noticing there's these big, like, brown piles of, I think it might be like sesame seed plants or something. But there's like these big brown piles, and then I'll notice the ladies go out there, like the grandmas, and they're thrashing at these piles, loosening all the seeds.
Yeah.
So I've been noticing that happen for about, I don't know, the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yep. Those are what translate as sesame leaves. And although they're not sesame leaves, Jesus, what are they called?
Perilla?
Yeah, perilla leaves. The leaves are used to wrap little pieces of barbecued meat, maybe with some rice and kimchi or whatever, when you have barbecue. But most importantly, the seeds are used for like a thickening agent. And they harvest the seeds in the fall. First they harvest all the plants, and then they dry them out in the sun, and I guess eventually the leaves or the seeds kind of dry out and become loose, and then they whack the bundles of stalks that are piled up.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly how they harvest the seeds. I think they put them on tarp and then just gather them up with their hands. I don't know.
Well, and then the other day, right next to the apartment that's on the other side of the little garden farmer area, there was a tarp down, and then there were all these eggplants that somebody had harvested and then cut into all of these slices. I guess they were drying them in the sun. And then just last night we went to go have some Korean food dinner at this little local place that we like to go. We call it the mom and daughter shop, because it seems like it's a mom and daughter that run it. And anyways, they had this side dish with eggplant and this not sesame, it was like a soy sauce kind of something
with some peppers,
some pepper, but it was so good, and they'd never made that before. I've never had it there, and it was delicious. It was so good. And I likely a lot of the dishes that they served I would not be surprised if they're just local from some of the farmers right around here. It's like the freshest side dishes and food. I just love this place. We've been there almost every night this week. We've been on a roll.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
They gave us a light scolding.
yeah.
We showed up and we were sitting at the table for like 1 minute. There was no one else there. And then they kind of wandered out and saw us and started cooking what we usually order without asking. That's how predictable we are. And then she came up and was like, she's telling me this in Korean. She's like, just when you come in and you don't see me, just say "Ajima" and just bark lady, like, "Hey lady," and then she'll know that we're here. So just do that when we come in. And I don't know. I still can't bring myself to just shout "Hey lady" for them to start like serving me. It feels weird, but that's what they expect.
Yeah, it's
they
not
don't. They
rude.
don't
They
care.
don't think of
It's
it
not
as
rude.
rude. No.
They're just like, okay, cool. We know that you're here.
Yeah.
I just thought waiting a minute would be a little more graceful. But then the next day we went a little late, and they never post when they close.
So we've never known for 2 years.
For 2 years, they don't. I think they do have like an open close sign, but there's nothing written on it. And we never get there after 8. But the other night we got there at like
7:30.
a little after 7:30, like 7:40. And she was like, "You're gonna have to eat a little fast because we close at 8." And I was like, "Oh, that would explain the kind of like accusatory look of death you gave us when we came in and wanted to spend money." And she did serve us, and then like we kept coming back. I was like, maybe we should eat somewhere else for a while, And Shamar was like, well, when you fall off a horse, you get back on it quickly. So we went right back, and we've been going back over and over again earlier. And damn, the food's the best in town. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, there's a guy walked out of there with like a bag in his hand, a transparent plastic bag with a bunch of uncooked meat that he like bought from them. Mm-hmm. I don't know what that's about. If they're like hustling their scraps,
or what? Who knows?
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was a delicious meal, like always. I mean, usually we look forward to having a Friday night meal when we go get the barbecue. But this week we've been just doing Korean food every night. And, sometimes you just got to do that. I'm going to miss it. And when we leave Korea, I imagine coming back eventually just to come get food. I'm going to miss it so much. Yeah.
Well, I hope they're still around.
Well, yeah, me too. North Korea is always a little bit scary.
I'm talking about the mother-daughter restaurant.
I thought you meant like nuclear bombs and stuff.
Yeah, North Korea launched, to add to the weirdness of the eclipse and the elections and all the weird energies floating around. North Korea, they flung a bunch of missiles into the sea, and their intercontinental ballistic missile crashed and failed into the Sea of Japan. And kind of out of embarrassment, they mobilized a bunch of their fighter planes in the middle of a U.S. South Korea military exercise to freak out the South, change the conversation, take us seriously. So, we had a nice little uptick in tensions to jerk around the new conservative president whose unification minister is proposing that they make North Korean propaganda available on TV, radio, and print, like on every level, which is code for like subsidizing North Korean propaganda in South Korea for the sake of ethnic homogeneity. And that sounds completely insane. But the National Assembly is controlled by a supermajority of the pro-North Korea Minjudang party. And the conservative president knows he has to kind of do what they want or even go further than they do, or else he could get impeached based on anything that they want. So, this is kind of a spooky time. And before I forget, the last time we saw a shooting star was when our coworker left like 2 months ago to go back to Wales.
Oh, yeah.
Well, eventually he was going to go back, but he was taking a vacation first. We went out, did a recording, and we saw a shooting star right then.
That might have been
and then,
right before this.
Yeah, that was. And the very next, we were talking about like, it's going back to Britain. And we got a new teacher, also from Britain, And weirdly enough, the very next day, the queen died.
Oh yeah.
And we're like, wow, damn. Was that the queen in the
Oh right. The
like
star.
like buzzing around the atmosphere? That's a trip. Yeah, she's been alive for so long that her spirit's gonna have some weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that shooting star, maybe it symbolizes the our transition
Yeah.
away from our last days in Korea, or the very next day, election results.
Yeah.
Oh boy,
Oh,
dude.
that's-
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not as pessimistic as
I
everyone
was
else.
gonna say that's an optimistic. That would be optimistic because that was a shooting star near Jupiter, and yeah,
Maybe we'll finally get nice things.
that would be fantastic. So fantastic.
A chicken in every pot, and a solid gold Cadillac
Well, you know what I have in my
for
pocket?
every citizen. What do you have in your pocket?
I have a cookie.
Oh,
This is a special cookie because the bad kid at school, I won't say his name, but everybody knows he's a bad kid. I haven't taught him, but other people have. His mom brought treats for all of the teachers.
oh, him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Why do you
he's-
think she did that?
He's not that bad.
Oh, he's not. Okay, I thought he was.
Yeah, he's kind of a pain, but
He's a difficult
he wants
kid, let's say.
attention,
Yeah.
and he's a little bigger than the other kids, and
Anyways, I think his mom brought some treats for all of the teachers because she felt a little concerned.
yeah, I taught him in the kindergarten class. Now he's moving up, and I teach him art, and I do tutoring with him. So I've got a special bond with him.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna eat one of the
He
cookies.
knows I drink a lot of green tea every day at school in these bottles that I get from the convenience store, and he's like, "Ah, this is good for Nokcha green tea." And he's, yeah, eat it with your Nokcha. These are good
It's like
baked goods.
cinnamon. They're good.
They're actually kind of buttery. They-
That's really
not-
good.
This batch, they did not skimp.
Just tastes very autumn, like a very like
Oh, yeah.
pumpkiny, spicy cookie.
Pumpkin spice.
Yeah.
It's been a punchline for at least 5 years. Yeah. Well, another thing transpired since our last
Yeah.
recording, and that was we went to the Andong Mask Festival, and that was a goddamn trip.
And the folk village.
We went to the folk village, which is on the edge of town, and it's like a, what is it, 500, 600-year-old village?
I don't remember. I mean, it's pretty old.
But it's got, one of their Zelkova trees, which Zelkovas traditionally, that's what they use for like bonsai trees, basically. And when they craft them in miniature, they'll use Zelkova trees, I believe. But traditionally in the gates of the traditional villages, they'd be like the guardians of the village. But a lot of these were all just torn down during their industrialization drive, during the reign of Park Chung-hee, their industrial dictator who modernized the place, but at the expense of a great deal of freedom and such. So at gunpoint, he industrialized the place, and he tried to modernize things by suppressing superstitions, such as having these beautiful ancient Zelkova trees that protected the villages. You just have them mostly cut down. But a few survived, including in this village. And this one is known for being like the place where I think a female spirit, like a goddess of fertility, lives.
The village must be about 500 or 600 years old because I believe the tree was about that old. So
Yep.
yeah, I remember it being about 500 or 600 years.
Yep, but it's built on the edge of a river, and it's built according to super feng shui principles. Feng shui is the Chinese term. I can't remember what the Korean term is, but geomancy, to translate it into English. And they had a wonderful festival, which I've never seen anything like this. Right before, right before the sun sets, there's this big cliff across the river from this little village. And they would have a couple giant ropes connecting the tip of the cliff to the village. And,
Like pine trees growing in the village.
and there's, their own little pine tree area along the edge and this big bank in the river. And they would light these ropes on fire, but the rope was lined with these bags of mulberry root charcoal mixed with salt. So it would slowly over the course of was it an hour or 2 hours?
It probably kept going. It probably lasted for a few hours.
Yeah, slowly these two ropes would glow, and they would creep up towards the cliff, and these bags,
They look like embers falling from the sky.
they didn't burst. Somehow they figured out how to make them slowly drop these glowing embers that looked like fireflies.
Yeah.
So there's each rope had like a sheet of slowly drifting fireflies that would drift towards the river, where we're standing on this big bank as the sun's setting. Then it gets dark and it's just magical, and they had music playing. And traditionally they would have aristocrats on this boat on the river at the same time, getting sauced on their soju or plum wine or whatever, reciting improv poetry. So they had actors, from the town, dressed
for this event,
dressed up in costume. The men would be standing around, reading poetry and such, and the women would be dressed up in traditional costumes too, playing instruments on this traditional boat, and they'd be doing their thing, floating along, and you can see all the traditional boat, the traditional costumes as they're playing music. And these embers are falling down, and the stars are coming out. And then the best part, or one of the best parts, the cliff, they light this giant log on fire and hurl it over the cliff.
It's like a tree.
It's a whole goddamn tree,
Yeah.
and
It looks like a Christmas tree or
like
something.
a giant Christmas tree, a big one, and they hurl it over the edge of the cliff, and it smashes down to like a smaller cliff below, and it goes down this giant cliff. And then they do it again and again, and with all this music playing, and the stars and the embers from the ropes, and there's all these people just amazed and walking along this bank by the river in the dark. Oh, it was...
To me, like, that was one of the most awe-inspiring rituals I've ever seen. Like, I was completely present in the moment. Just my jaw dropped, like, whoa. And it was amazing because it was all just so natural. It was just fire and some fiber and some wood and a cliff.
And water.
It was all these elements. It's so elemental and simple, but so, like, what is it about a burning tree being thrown off a cliff that is just so mesmerizing? I guess there's, like, a quality of danger to it that's kind of intriguing,
I love how they didn't, like, wall off the area where the embers were falling down. I was, like, frolicking with the embers underneath the ropes by the water.
Like, so between the water and the pine tree forest was basically like the bank, which is full of pebbles. And so there were hundreds of people and sand. So there were like hundreds of people just camped out on this sandy, pebbly bank. Not camped out with tents, but like they had their picnic and they had their blankets down, and the kids were running around, and the grandmas and the grandpas and the families were out there. And it was just so relaxing, and everybody was just in a merry mood. And
after a while, they had to close it with the climax, which was a giant firework display.
Yeah, that was insane. I was not expecting that.
Kaboom.
It was like so close to our eyes, too. It was like right there over the cliff.
Yeah. They did not rush the embers falling down.
No.
Which was my favorite part. That was like mingling with the stars in space or something.
Yeah, it was so magical.
Definitely a peak experience.
It was a peak experience. Yeah. Probably the whole time in Korea, I would say that is the peak experience. It was
And that's
intense.
after soaking up the traditional village.
Yeah.
It was like a real traditional village, not like
People
a
still live
Disney
there.
style reimagining or something like
No,
that.
like
They did not
generations.
reconstruct it. These are like the same houses and
Families going back generations, and they still live
families,
there.
orchards. Yeah, it's amazing. And then you go back to the main. That was the village on the outskirts of Andong, and then in Andong itself, they had all these stages with traditional dances from all over Korea, mask dances. And we saw one which was, man, reading about it was a trip. They were saying, like, it's basically satire. It's political satire. People making fun of the aristocracy and the Yangban, kind of lesser nobility, scholar class who would have concubines and the old Confucian system. And they were just ridiculing the rich people. And apparently this one was from North Korea when the peninsula was divided at the end of World War II. A bunch of people from this village were able to reconstruct their traditional dance, which goes back, I think, 100 years to like the 19th century when this one was formulated. You have all these people in exaggerated masks, just telling jokes, and they'd have different characters representing different classes of society, all ridiculing the social system as it was decaying in the 19th century. So these are like, it's political satire, but it's also funny. Like, it's like watching cartoons, how exaggerated the faces.
It
It's like this kind of wacky, and the people would talk to the audience and bring laughter out of the audience. And it would go on with music, lots of drums and people telling stories, and you'd have characters shuffle on, shuffle off, and they'd have this like rascally old drunk character, all super decorated in big colorful costumes and lots of comic relief. And apparently back in the old days, they would perform for the whole village, and when the play was done, it would last all afternoon, everyone would take off their masks, the performers, and they would mingle with the crowd for hours afterwards and just share drinks and mingle with everyone, play music and laugh, and the performers would just blend in with the audience, and everyone got to feel like they're part of it. And yeah, that takes guts for an entire village to be so subversive and loudly so like that, using comedy, and art and music. It's great. And then I don't even know how to describe that giant tug of war thing that was happening in the main street.
Yeah, that was like a game. It's like a ritual game.
Giant, like this team of like over 100 people in red versus
on each team
in the middle of the street versus this team of over 100 people in blue, and each one had like a guy dressed up like a traditional admiral on the end of like a warrior. And and all the women were banging drums around the edges, and all the men were like pulling on these ropes where their admiral or leader or whatever was. It looked like the tip of a ship,
or like a catapult or something. Like they're in a catapult.
And they would all cheer and everything, and they'd have spears. They would all chant and just and they'd pull on these ropes
and go in circles.
And
like
their leader would like go up into the sky, tilted back on this triangular tip of what looked like a boat or some kind of like scaffolding, and they would go around in circles with each team like shouting at each other with spears and drums and stuff.
And it was intense because you were hearing all these voices, like hundreds of voices making
they're all
the
dressed
same
in
sound.
Traditional gear too,
and the drums going, and this probably went on for like an hour or two, and the streets were packed because just from the performers there's at least 200 or 300 people performing this whole ritual play. And play, not like a theater play, like you're playing a game, like a game.
It translates
but
as
then
like
you have hundreds of people watching it, and then you have, probably a good 100 people playing the drums and other instruments. So it's like a massive amount of people playing and watching this. It was insane.
The stage where they had like
so much fun.
Boy bands performing earlier for people who were taking a break from the traditional mask festivals on the side stages. The big stage, while this was going on in the street, the people on the stage were wearing traditional clothes and like sitting there observing the whole thing. I was like, did the president come?
Who
Did
knows?
the
who
president
was
of
up
Korea
there?
like sit down and observe this whole thing? Because it looked like there was a pretty serious entourage of like, maybe it was like the oldest man in Andong or
Who
something
knows?
like that.
Yeah, like a special seats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was very memorable.
Yeah. And you did a good job finding hotels. They had that nice sleazy red light.
Because we made the reservations like a week before. I kind of forgot that this was going to be happening, so we did last minute reservations. We had 2 nice hotels, but each night we had to change motels because everything was booked. Like this sells out, and we were lucky to get anything. But the only way to get a room was to change every single night. And so the second night we were there, we ended up having to take this like sleazy love motel, super inexpensive, really cheap.
Awesome.
But it was awesome. It had like the red lights.
Didn't even have
and,
a bed. It had like a futon mattress
like
on the ground. Or it was less than that. It was like...
Well, it had the red lights coming out of this, the wall.
With like a mat on the ground with some sheets.
And then there's like a Kleenex box with like, you can call this number to get the massage lady to come, just like one of those places. But it ended up being really fun. It was like very
awesome.
It was very like homey in a weird way, like very Korean vibe.
Oh yeah.
Whereas the other 2 places were much more modern. So it was very memorable.
I like the sleazy one.
Yeah, it was fun. It was like, it was fun.
Yeah, got my... I can't remember if I ate corn cones.
I'm sure we did.
I ate ice cream, but I can't remember if I ate corn cones, which is like the most comical form of ice cream that I eat here.
And like when this festival goes on, I think it's maybe about a week long or so. And so all of these dances are going on throughout the day, and then at night people are meeting in these alleyways and they're just eating food on the streets, they're drinking on the streets, they're just having so much fun. And there were people playing like traditional instruments, pulling out their little flute and having soju and barbecue and like
Some guy interviewed me.
It was like a
He was like, hey, blah, 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 blah. Where are you from? And I'm like, Yeoju. Which part? I'm like, Ohakdong. He's like expecting me to say what country I'm from and what part of that country I'm from. But I told him where in Korea, and I did my little kind of jolly American caricature that I whip out when people want me to perform. And so I'm on TV somewhere. That's interesting. But he gave me a box, like a gift. And I was like, oh, hell yeah. So we went back to the hotel, opened it, and it was like Andong traditional masks. I thought they might have been cookies or something, but it was like this strong-smelling soap. And
they look like masks.
They look like masks.
They were in like mask molds.
Mask molds. Yeah. So I got soap.
You got soap.
Strong-smelling soap from some guy who wanted to kind of poke at the foreigner walking by.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he also give us some sunglasses, or that was the survey guy. There's the survey guy who asked for opinions earlier about like how they could improve the festival. Some student, and he gave us those party glasses with like sunflower with glitter and shit on them. So I was wearing those when the guy interviewed me. It was this weird foreigner walking around with glitter sunflower glasses in the evening on TV, winning soap. Yeah. So that's nice. Yeah. Wow, the moon looks like Mars or Jupiter or something. Kind of a dusky peach color on the left, and then it gets more like a coppery brown, and then the edge on the right is black. Yeah, cool, man.
I don't even think a lot of people realize it's the eclipse. I see people over there playing tennis in this on the bright tennis court. I don't even think they know there's an eclipse happening. Probably not.
Nope.
Oh.
Oh, what?
The other thing is Halloween. That was...
Oh yeah, that's something else that happened.
Kind of sad.
Yeah, our boss doesn't like celebrating Halloween at the Hagwon because it seems too devilish for her, and she doesn't like that type of thing. So we don't. But of course, all the kids are curious about it. To them, it's the most, it's the most kid-like holiday. That and Christmas, and all the children are basically gremlins anyway.
Yes.
They like to be little trickster mischief makers, scampering about, winning candy and pulling pranks. And Saturday, 2 days before Halloween, I think the number is up to 154. 154 people were crushed to death in the seedy neighborhood of Itaewon, Seoul, which is the site of the Yongsan garrison, where U.S. troops used to be stationed in the city. And so there's this, it's known for having this place called Hooker Hill, and there's a related Homo Hill, which sprouted up next to it, which is now still, I believe, like the main gay district in Seoul. Hooker Hill remains, Homo Hill remains. The troops were relocated to Camp Humphreys south of Seoul, like, 8 years ago, I think? Yeah. And so the troops are gone, but the kind of gross nightlife vibe remains.
Yeah, that was really gross.
And I remember going there like 15 years ago, and just there'd be a lot of like soldiers and kind of this douchey popped collar kind of vibe. And I don't know, you used to see military police in uniform kind of marching through nightclubs looking for American soldiers violating curfew, and I'd be like, what the fuck, dude? That happens, huh? Weird. But anyway, the base is gone, but all the nightlife infrastructure is still there. So everyone, this is the first Halloween or big holiday for young adults since the restrictions were lifted from the pandemic. And so everyone packed this area, over 100,000 people crammed into this little district. And I don't know how it started, but about 154 people were crushed to death.
Just too many people.
Bodies piled on bodies, just awful. And no, I was not there. I was getting a molar taken out in a different part of Seoul, a wisdom tooth. And so earlier that day, but I missed that area completely. Did not want to go out. At least not to Itaewon. And of course you get the people were saying like, yeah, people on TV and in the media were saying like, why do we even celebrate Halloween? It's not Korean anyway. And basically implying like, yeah, this is what you get from celebrating foreign holidays. And which is weird because everyone celebrates Christmas here and Valentine's Day, but I guess Halloween is a little too ghoulish. So on the actual Halloween day, the following Monday, it was not as fun in my mind, and just the kids were like, yeah, Halloween, yeah, you heard about the crush, huh? I'm like, yeah, I did. Here's some candy.
And moving on.
And moving on, yeah. So it's been a weird couple of weeks. And we get election results.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. You got anything else to say?
No, I think that's about it. I mean, we finally have on our big poofy jackets. Winter is here. It definitely is.
Dropped down to freezing 2 nights ago.
Yeah. So that's a big shift.
Yeah, people are wearing poofy jackets now. There's always this awkward period of time where people will walk to the store out of their apartments wearing like shorts and a poofy jacket. And it lasts about a week. And flip-flops or Crocs with like pajama bottoms. But I think we're seeing
We're moving past that.
moving past that. Now it's just full winter gear, even though there's still a few leaves left on the trees.
Yeah.
All right, so we done?
I think that's it. We're on the countdown to get out of here. So what is it? November
8th, Tuesday.
So we're looking at December, January. We have about 3 months, a little more.
Little bit more than 3.
Just barely. And if things go according to plan, then we will be heading on out of Korea. It's been a long stay, but yeah, we're on the way out.
Our last autumn in Korea.
Yeah, our last autumn and winter. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Right,
this is November 8th, Tuesday, 2022, on the riverbanks of beautiful Yeoju, South Korea. Bye.